in the asylum every night, and he had a girlfriend named Rusty. Dusty and Rusty, they both dressed in white, and she was this much taller than he.
For over 50 years, Robert Duvall was one of the few Hollywood legends who never needed drama to stay respected. Directors trusted him, actors admired him, and fans saw him as the calm, disciplined force who always delivered. He rarely complained, never chased controversy, and avoided the ego battles that define the industry around him. But silence isn't the same as peace. Behind the steady exterior were decades of tension, disappointment, and quiet resentment that he never spoke about, until now. At 94 years old, long after fame stopped carrying any weight, Duvall finally broke his silence, and the names he revealed stunned everyone. 6 giants, 6 legends, 6 people no one expected him to call the enemy. One was the friend he once called a brother. One was the mentor who shaped his career. One was the idol he worshipped in his youth. And the last name is the one that changed everything. This is the story Robert Duvall kept hidden for most of his life, about loyalty, betrayal, and the quiet wars behind Hollywood's greatest performances. Long before fame and money twisted everything around them, Robert Duvall and Al Pacino lived like brothers. They were 2 struggling actors sharing a cramped apartment in Beverly Glen, surviving on cheap meals and long rehearsals, pushing each other through auditions and setbacks. Their connection was real, built on ambition, respect, and the belief that they would rise together. When they finally landed roles in The Godfather, it felt like proof that all those late nights and sacrifices had been worth it. For years, their friendship became one of Hollywood's quiet success stories. They trusted each other, defended each other, and moved through the industry as a pair of rising legends. But success changes things. And in Hollywood, nothing tests loyalty like money. When negotiations for The Godfather Part 3 began, the studio sent out contracts that exposed an ugly truth about how each actor was valued. Pacino was offered $5 million plus a percentage of the profits. Duvall received a flat $1 million. No percentage, no bonus, no sign that his presence mattered as much as the man playing Michael Corleone. It wasn't just a pay gap. To Duvall, it was a message. The brotherhood they built meant far less to the studio than it did to him. He didn't argue. He didn't fight. He quietly folded the contract, stood up, and walked out. A few hours later, Francis Ford Coppola received a single-line fax that ended 20 years of friendship. "I won't return just to be someone's backdrop." From that moment, their bond was gone. Duvall retreated to his Virginia farm and moved on to films that felt honest to him, while Pacino continued to rise as the face of explosive, emotional acting. They never publicly addressed the rift, and they never reconciled. But the distance between them became obvious to anyone who knew their history. At the 2011 Oscars reunion, they stood only a few feet apart. 2 men who once shared dreams in a tiny apartment, now avoiding each other like strangers. No words, no eye contact, only the cold reminder of what ambition had destroyed. If the bond with Pacino could break so easily, what would happen when the person hurting him wasn't a brother, but a mentor? Before the divide, Francis Ford Coppola wasn't just a director to Robert Duvall, he was the man who opened the door to everything. In 1971, during the early casting stages of The Godfather, Coppola pointed straight at Duvall and said, "He's the Tom Hagen I've been looking for." It was more than a compliment. It was validation from one of the most ambitious filmmakers of his generation. From that moment on, Duvall saw Coppola as a mentor, a creative anchor, and someone who truly understood what he brought to the screen. For years, that bond held strong. Coppola trusted Duvall's instincts, and Duvall believed in Coppola's vision. Together, they helped build one of the greatest film trilogies in history. But behind the scenes, the relationship wasn't as perfect as it looked. Pressure exposes everything, and Apocalypse Now became the project that slowly pulled their connection apart. The production was legendary for its chaos, but for Duvall, one moment became impossible to forget. While filming the napalm sequence under brutal heat, he collapsed from dehydration. His lips were split, his skin was burning, and he could barely stand upright. Yet Coppola's reaction wasn't concern, it was calculation. He looked at Duvall and said, "Do it again." "The light isn't right." That line stayed with Duvall for decades. It didn't anger him immediately, but it planted a seed. It showed him that sometimes genius comes at the cost of compassion, and not everyone is willing to pay that price. Years later, when negotiations for The Godfather Part 3 began, that old feeling returned. The studio's salary offer to Duvall was shockingly low compared to Pacino's, and while the decision ultimately rested with the studio, it was Coppola who delivered the news. In Duvall's mind, the mentor who once believed in him was now standing behind a system that didn't value him at all. He refused to return, stating he wouldn't play a role about loyalty when the people behind the film weren't practicing it. Coppola tried to repair the damage. He reached out, sent handwritten letters, and attempted to explain the situation, but the trust had already been fractured. Duvall didn't respond. What had started as a life-changing partnership ended quietly, without drama or confrontation, just two men who took different paths after realizing they no longer saw each other the same way. It wasn't anger that ended it, it was disappointment. Before Robert Duvall ever stepped onto a Hollywood set, he studied Marlon Brando the way young musicians study Beethoven. Brando wasn't just an actor to him, he was the standard. Duvall memorized scenes from On the Waterfront and A Streetcar Named Desire, studying every pause, every breath, every shift in emotion. So when the two finally met on the set of The Godfather in 1971, Duvall believed he was about to stand face to face with a living god. But the moment Brando walked in, the illusion shattered. He arrived hours late, drifting in with sunglasses on, a cigarette in hand, and assistants trailing behind him like royalty. He refused rehearsals. He demanded cue cards taped to walls, props, and even the backs of other actors. He rewrote lines on the spot, shifting scenes however he pleased. To the outside world, this was classic Brando, unpredictable, unconventional, and undeniably brilliant. To Duvall, it felt like chaos masked as genius. For someone who valued discipline, precision, and professionalism, watching Brando treat the set like his personal playground was unsettling. The admiration he carried into the project slowly transformed into discomfort, and then into something sharper. The breaking point came at the 1973 Oscars, when Brando sent an activist to reject his award on live television. Half of America applauded the bold statement. Duvall, however, saw something else entirely. He felt Brando had turned their collective work, their months of effort, into a spectacle for his own agenda. In Duvall's eyes, it wasn't courage, it was disrespect. A private protest delivered on a night meant to celebrate everyone who helped build the film. From that moment on, his feelings toward Brando changed permanently. What started as admiration hardened into frustration and later into open resentment. Their relationship never recovered. They rarely spoke. And when they did, it lacked the warmth most people expected from two icons of the same film. When Brando passed away in 2004, people assumed every major cast member from The Godfather would attend the funeral. Duvall didn't. Instead, he sent Francis Ford Coppola a simple white card with 3 words written on it: "Let it end." It was the final closing of a chapter that began with idolization and ended with disillusionment. Proof that even legends can fall from the pedestals we build for them. Stanley Kubrick is remembered as one of the greatest directors to ever touch a camera. His films changed the language of cinema, inspired generations of filmmakers, and shaped the visual style of entire genres. But to Robert Duvall, Kubrick's brilliance came with a darkness people didn't like to talk about. In 2010, during a Hollywood Reporter roundtable, Duvall shocked the entire panel when he said calmly, "To me, the great Stanley Kubrick was an actor's enemy." The room fell silent. Every actor at that table, Ryan Gosling, Jeff Bridges, Mark Wahlberg, froze for a moment. They all admired Kubrick. They all grew up studying him. But Duvall didn't flinch. He meant every word. His issue wasn't personal, it was philosophical. Duvall believed Kubrick's obsession with perfection crossed the line into cruelty. While most directors used multiple takes to shape a performance, Kubrick pushed actors into exhaustion, sometimes demanding 70, 80, even 100 takes for a single moment. To Duvall, that wasn't directing. It was draining the life out of a performance until nothing genuine remained. That belief hardened after he watched the behind-the-scenes footage from The Shining. Shelley Duvall, no relation to Robert, was filmed swinging a baseball bat again and again while Kubrick shouted, pushed, and drilled her emotionally. 127 takes later, her hands were shaking, her voice was breaking, her spirit looked crushed. When Robert Duvall saw that footage, he said it felt like watching torture disguised as filmmaking. Years earlier, Kubrick had even invited Duvall to discuss a role in one of his unmade passion projects, The Aryan Papers. Instead of talking about character motivation or emotional depth, Kubrick spent half an hour discussing lighting patterns and camera rhythm. Not a single question about the internal life of the character. Not one moment spent talking about the heart of the story. Duvall left the meeting chilled, later saying the room felt colder than a morgue. He respected Kubrick's genius. He acknowledged the director's talent, but he refused to join the chorus that treated Kubrick like a flawless icon. In Duvall's eyes, talent without compassion wasn't greatness. It was a warning. When he told Esquire that Kubrick was a genius without a heart, Hollywood took it personally. It was rare for anyone to criticize Kubrick openly, especially someone as respected as Duvall. The pushback was immediate, but Duvall didn't retract a single word. He felt he had seen behind the creative curtain, and what he found there troubled him deeply. For Duvall, Kubrick wasn't an enemy in the traditional sense. He was the embodiment of an artistic philosophy Duvall believed could break actors rather than elevate them, and that made him just as dangerous. Robert Duvall never raised his voice at Robert De Niro. They never exchanged insults, never had an explosive argument, and never made their tension public. But behind every polite handshake and every brief interaction at award shows, there was a quiet hostility that lasted for decades. Their conflict wasn't personal, it was artistic. It was a clash between two philosophies of acting that couldn't have been more different. De Niro became the face of extreme method acting. He starved himself, gained weight, changed accents, shaved his head, and altered his voice depending on the role. Hollywood praised him for it. Critics celebrated the dedication. Fans saw him as a chameleon who could transform into anyone. But to Duvall, all of these transformations felt like disguises, layers of physical change hiding an empty center. The moment that defined their tension came after The Godfather Part 2. Both men emerged from the film as icons of serious acting, but their approaches couldn't have been further apart. During an interview, Duvall was asked about De Niro's talent, and he offered a line that sounded complimentary on the surface. He's good at playing Italians. Very good. But beneath that sentence was a sharp, deliberate jab. Duvall wasn't praising De Niro. He was saying De Niro was hiding behind characters rather than revealing anything true about himself. Duvall believed great acting lived in small, controlled moments. The pauses, the silence, the tiny gestures that revealed character from the inside out. He often said, "The work isn't in the weight gain, it's in the silence." To him, De Niro's method wasn't depth, it was theater. The rivalry deepened over the years as De Niro pushed further into transformative roles. While he endured brutal physical changes for Raging Bull and Taxi Driver, Duvall quietly delivered subtle performances in films like Tender Mercies and The Apostle. Critics praised both, but Duvall felt the industry was beginning to confuse obsession with artistry. In private conversations with colleagues, he reportedly said, actors who worshipped method risked becoming parodies of themselves, trapped in a cycle of extremes just to prove how serious they were. And when De Niro began appearing in comedies like Meet the Parents and Analyze This, Duvall muttered a line that revealed exactly what he thought of De Niro's tough guy image. There's the mask cracking. To his credit, De Niro never fired back. He once responded to a question about Duvall by saying, "Bob's a serious actor, we just have different energies." That was the public version. The private truth was simpler. They avoided each other. No collaborations, no conversations, no attempts to reconnect. Their Cold War wasn't about ego. It was about what acting should be, and neither man was willing to compromise his belief for the other. Of all the names Robert Duvall revealed, the one that surprised people the most wasn't a rival actor or a former friend. It was Bruce Beresford, the director who helped Duvall win his first and only Academy Award. On paper, Tender Mercies should have been one of the warmest chapters of Duvall's career. It was a small, intimate film about a broken country singer searching for redemption, and it gave Duvall one of the most soulful performances of his life. But behind the scenes, that movie created a wound he never fully let go of. The tension began early in production. Filming in Texas under tight schedules, Beresford pushed Duvall through take after take, obsessing over rhythm and delivery. To most actors, this would have been frustrating, but manageable. To Duvall, it felt like the director didn't trust his instincts. Friction built slowly, then sharply. During one heated moment, Beresford insisted that a drunk character should speak slowly. Duvall snapped back with a line he repeated for years afterward. "A drunk man never speaks slowly." It wasn't just a disagreement about technique, it was a clash of truth versus control, and Duvall wasn't willing to compromise. The situation escalated when Duvall secretly filmed one of the film's most important scenes at dawn, without telling the crew or the director. In his mind, the studio schedule and Beresford's direction were strangling the emotional honesty of the moment. So he took a camera, filmed the church performance himself, and delivered the version he believed the movie needed. That stolen scene became the emotional heart of Tender Mercies. When awards season came, the film earned 5 Oscar nominations, winning 2, including Duvall's long-awaited Best Actor trophy. It should have been a celebration. It should have been the night he thanked Beresford for guiding the project. But when Duvall walked on stage, he bowed to the screenwriter, nodded to the crew, and thanked nearly everyone, except the director. The omission was so deliberate that the entire room froze. Critics noticed instantly. The next morning, The Hollywood Reporter ran the headline, "Duvall ignores Beresford at the Oscars." Beresford tried to downplay the tension publicly, saying he respected Duvall but admitted they would never work together again. Duvall didn't soften his stance. In an interview years later, he said something that finally explained the rift. "Sometimes you have to choose loyalty to the character or to someone else." To him, Beresford represented the directors who cared more about control than truth. And once that trust was broken, Duvall had no interest in fixing it. He went on to write and direct The Apostle, proving he didn't need anyone else dictating his emotional direction ever again. Beresford continued his career quietly, but every time Tender Mercies came up in interviews, the silence between the two men lingered. Loud, unmistakable, and permanent. By the time Robert Duvall reached his 90s, Hollywood had already changed into a place he barely recognized. The egos were bigger, the attention spans shorter, and the industry had become louder than ever. But through all those decades, through the fame, the criticism, the awards, the disappointments, Duvall stayed remarkably quiet about the people who shaped him, challenged him, and in some cases wounded him. He never chased publicity. He never exposed private grudges. He simply moved forward. So when he finally broke that silence and named the 6 men he considered enemies, not because they hated him, but because they changed him, Hollywood listened. These weren't random names. These were giants, men who helped build the very world he worked in. Each one represented a different kind of conflict: betrayal, disillusionment, artistic differences, or simply a painful reminder that even legends have limits. Al Pacino was the brother whose loyalty cracked under the weight of money. Francis Ford Coppola was the mentor who pushed too hard and apologized too late. Marlon Brando was the idol who showed him that genius and arrogance often walk hand in hand. Stanley Kubrick was the visionary he believed crossed the line between perfection and cruelty. Robert De Niro was the embodiment of a philosophy of acting he could never respect. And Bruce Beresford was the director who helped give him an Oscar, while also leaving a scar he never forgot. These stories weren't about revenge. They were about truth. After a lifetime of discipline, professionalism, and quiet restraint, Duvall finally allowed himself to speak openly, not to tear anyone down, but to reveal the hidden battles behind the scenes, the ones that shaped his career more than any script ever did. Because the real drama in Hollywood isn't always on camera. Sometimes it's in the silence between takes. Sometimes it's in the contracts. Sometimes it's in the years of unspoken tension between two people who once trusted each other. And sometimes it's in the names an old man finally feels free to say after carrying them for far too long. If you enjoyed uncovering the hidden stories behind Hollywood's legends, make sure to subscribe. There are countless more untold truths, rivalries, and behind-the-scenes mysteries waiting to be revealed, and you won't want to miss any of them.